just to kind of demonstrate to you that there's no mystery into what is a Docker image, we're going to run a Docker image by hand, right? Using the same techniques that we did before. Yeah, just to show that they're literally just zip files pretty much, right? So a pre-made container is called an image, right? And you can base your images off of other people's images, right? And you kind of build these, what they're called as layers on top of each other, right? And basically an all-in images is it just dumps out the state of a particular container and tars it together or zips it together. That's actually literally what it does, right? So let's go ahead and have some fun with this. So yeah, we're going to do this within a Docker container. So we're going to run Docker from within a Docker container. There's some levels to this, right? And the reason is I need Ubuntu, right? And I'm on Mac right now. So if you run this container right here, what this is going to do is it's going to run a Docker container that has a Docker client that's connected to your host VM, right? Or your host computer, right? So if I run this, this is going to connect to my Docker that's running on my Docker desktop, right? So you can see now I'm actually, if I cat etc issue, I'm actually within Alpine Linux, and we will talk about what Alpine Linux is later, but suffice to say I'm within Linux, but if I say Docker PS, I can actually see the container within which I'm running, right? This is atypical. Typically you cannot connect outside of the host, but that's what this -v did. It allowed me to connect outside of it, right? So I opened a tunnel to the host Docker desktop. Again, don't worry too much about the semantics of that. Just know that we're connecting to the host Docker container. So I ran this command right there. So what I want to do right now is I want to download a Docker container, and then I want to chroot into the environment and unshare it and then add it to cgroups. I'll leave out running the cgroups because we saw how to do that. It's a bit burdensome, so I think you'll trust me, right? But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to say another Docker command right now, docker run --rm -dit -name my alpine. And we're going to run alpine :3.10, and we're going to run shell from within that. Now all this is going to do is it's going to start a container in the background. That's all we did here. So if I look at Docker PS again, you can see right there I have this container right here, which I have named my alpine, and all it's doing is it's just running. Not doing anything, just running. Now why did I do this? I'm going to dump the state out of this, right? And then I'm going to run it as my own container, which is exactly what an image is. So I'm going to say docker export -o docker container .tar, which is like a zip file, right, for Linux. And I'm going to dump out the state of my alpine. So you can see now I have this docker container.tar. This is the state of what that container is. Now I'm going to make a directory. Make directory container root. And I'm going to say tar xf. I can never remember the flags for tar. Docker container tar dash capital C container root. This is going to, if I look inside of container root now, looks pretty familiar, right? Looks like another file system for Linux. Again, that's what it is. So now this should feel very familiar to you. If I say unshare --mount --uts --ipc --net --pid --fork --user -- you can copy and paste this if you are not a glutton for punishment like I am. Map -root -user, and I'm going to say change root to container root, and I'm not going to run bash. I'm going to run a different one called ash because it is Alpine, right? It's not Ubuntu. Or you could just, I think you could just say shell as well. Okay. Now you can see If I run pwd, you can see I'm in the root directory. I am unshared now into this Docker container image. And you could do the typical mount procs none/proc mount -t sysfs none/sys and mount -t temp fs none/temp. And I can see psaux and same thing, right? I can see it's running the shell, so on and so forth, right? So I've essentially executed this Docker image, but I've done it with the previous techniques that we used. And again, I haven't C grouped this, but if you wanted to, you could go do that song and dance again if you wanted to. So again, there's no mystery to what Docker images are, right? They're pretty much just zip files, right? That go in and run these commands for you. Again, Docker is doing more than that for you. It's connecting volumes and bind mounts and a bunch of other like useful things for you that I could teach you that would not be very useful to you because you would never do it by hand, right? But I'm just kind of showing you that these are the sorts of things that it's doing underneath the hood for you. Like this is complexity that you never have to understand, right? You never needed to, but I think it's useful for you to know. Yeah.
On that previous command, after you change root, you don't need the pwd
Nope.
/container. Right there, yeah.
This one, right?
You don't need to prefix with the pwd.
No, so I have that in my notes just to make sure that it would always work depending on where you put that container root, right? So the pwd there, all it's going to do is like your present working directory, right? But because I know I put that Docker container in the root, right? It's right there. Yeah. So it wasn't necessary. It's just making sure the path is correct. So now we can exit out of that, and we are still within Alpine or our Docker container, right? So we did a container within a container, which is always kind of fun, right? But now I can exit out of that, which again will destroy your entire environment. But now I'm back in Mac OS.